Well, hello Rivals fans, and welcome back to the Rivals Report, the show that gets you up to speed on Rivals esports news in a nice, bite-sized package. My name is Diatonic, and this is the Rivals Report number 19 for the week of October 6th, 2025. On this week's report, Ignite Stage 2 is reaching the final stages in multiple regions, with only the Americas playoffs still on the docket. We've got a full breakdown of intense EMEA playoffs, the second week of the Americas group stage, and an inside look at the Oceania playoffs as well. And we head to South America in this globetrotting Rivals Report as well, as we've got coverage of a major NetEase-sponsored LATAM Rivals tournament. Well, EMEA continues to be one of the hottest regions in Rivals due to the level of competition, home to an ever-growing pool of some of the best players in the game. With only 3 invites to Grand Finals at DreamHack available, teams are ready to give everything they had to try and make it to the world stage. Let's see who made the cut and who was cut down. Citadel and Vice shot the starting gun for the EMEA playoffs, facing off against one another in the opening match. But the Stage 1 champs would best Vice here, sending them down to the lower bracket with a big 3-0. Insomnia were up against the Titan of Navi in the next match, one that they just weren't able to swing their way as Navi won 3-0 as well. Chopped vs FaZe was next up, a battle of unsigned teams here that Chopped would take with a convincing 3-1 win. And finally, the bear that is Virtus Pro took on OG Seed in the final match of the night, with VP winning handily in a 3-0 shutout. Insomnia and Vice would open up for day 2, a battle for survival in the lower bracket that Insomnia would walk away the victors from 3-1. FaZe and OG Seed would keep things moving in the next match, and though there were signs of life from OG, the Seed would be prematurely plucked from the ground with a 3-1 FaZe win. Navi entered the Citadel next, taking on the defending Stage 1 champs and finding themselves on the receiving end of a 3-0 win from Citadel. That would make Citadel the first EMEA team qualified for DreamHack Atlanta as well. And finally, the Giant Slayers of Chopped went up against Virtus Pro in a LAN qualifier match, a tense matchup for sure, but VP would come out on top 3-2, locking in their DreamHack invite as well. The penultimate day of EMEA playoffs held nothing but bangers on the card, starting off with a battle between Chopped and Insomnia. Chopped would keep their dominant streak alive here, besting Insomnia 3-0. Navi and FaZe squared off next, with the winner just a win away from a LAN invite, and Navi would clear FaZe out of the tournament 3-0. Taking a break from the lower bracket now, Citadel and Virtus Pro battled it out for the first Stage 2 Grand Finals slot, and it'd be Citadel advancing in an incredibly close 3-2 series. And in the war for the final spot at DreamHack, Chopped and Navi would cross paths yet again, but Navi were able to conquer their demons and lock in LAN 3-1. Navi would open things up against fellow powerhouse Virtus Pro for the final day of EMEA Stage 2. Navi gave Virtus Pro a beating back in the group stage upper bracket finals, so it was time for them to settle the score where it really counted. VP came out the gate swinging here, snagging a quick 2 maps before it felt like Navi even realized what was happening. They woke up and showed some signs of life on map 3, attempting to mount a comeback, but it would never come to fruition. Virtus Pro would close things out on map 4 and punch their ticket to the Stage 2 Grand Finals and a rematch with Citadel. So the Stage 1 champs Citadel were back in Grand Finals, here to defend their title against a ravenous Virtus Pro. Citadel would latch on to fleeting reminders of their previous match with VP, opening up with a big win on Burnin' T'Challa. But from there, Virtus Pro would begin a brutal beatdown, shutting out Citadel on Midtown, winning Central Park, and shutting them down yet again on Hell's Heaven. There were a few signs of life from Citadel on Yggdrasil Path, picking up their second map win of the series, but as we moved to Hall of Djalia for map 6, Virtus Pro would finish them off. With one last shutout and only scoring a single checkpoint themselves, Virtus Pro would defeat their Citadel demons and claim the EMEA Stage 2 crown for themselves. So Virtus Pro, Citadel, and Navi all advanced to the Grand Finals LAN tournament later this month. An absolute heartbreaker for teams like Insomnia, FaZe, and especially Chopped, who were so incredibly close to claiming a trip for themselves, but no such luck this round. This was truly one of the most difficult brackets to predict in competitive Rivals thus far, but in the end, the team that some have claimed to be the strongest in the world since the beginning emerged victorious. The Ignite action continued in the Americas region as the second week of the group stage was played out. Rivalries continued, playoff positions were finalized, and hearts were broken as we get ready to pivot to the last round of the Stage 2 playoffs. But before that, let's take a look at how the second week of NA went. Week 2 started off with Envy taking on Intergalactic. Envy's been a tough opponent for nearly every team they've crossed paths with, and that was no different here as they won 2-0. Nemesis got busy against Busy at Work up next, and it was a close series, but Nem would make it out the other end with a close 2-1 victory. Dreamland clashed with the Fire Strays next in yet another close NA matchup, but Dreamland would keep their dreams alive by knocking out the Strays in a tight 2-1 finish. And for the final matchup of the night, Extinction was looking to take down Dark Zero. But no such luck here, as the likes of a deadlier than ever Rymazing melted Extinction down to ashes 2-0. Dark Zero and Nemesis kicked things off for the second day of the second week, with DZ managing to pull off a reverse sweep for the 2-1 win. Dreamland and Envy went head-to-head next, and Envy continues to show why they're such a threat here with a 2-0 victory. The Marvel Rivals Esports classic match of Sentinels vs 100 Thieves was played out here yet again tonight, but it'd be the Thieves continuing their upper bracket heist with a 2-1 win over the Stage 1 champs. And for the last match of the day, FlyQuest took on Rad Esports, and though Rad had been playing exceptionally well in this tournament, they'd fall victim to a dominant FlyQuest 2-0 victory. Things showed no signs of slowing down as we hit day 3 of the second week of Group Stage. Envy's next opponents were Rad Esports, coming off that loss to FlyQuest. Envy continued their lower bracket buffet here, taking down Rad with a big 3-0 win to send them to the Group A Grand Finals against FlyQuest. The lower bracket finals on the Group B side were between Sentinels and Dark Zero, with the Sentinels facing their former teammates Rymazing and Karova for the first time this stage. And it would be those new DZ hires coming in clutch here, as Dark Zero would move on to the Group B Grand Finals against 100 Thieves after besting Sentinels 3-1. And the Group Stage Grand Finals were upon us as we reached the final night of this week's action. Two marquee matches here, the first of which being Envy versus FlyQuest. While Envy have been considered a major threat here in Stage 2 after a dominant midseason finals performance, FlyQuest gave the entire playoff field something to fear as they took a convincing 3-1 win in Group A. And in Group B, the new core of Dark Zero were here to thwart the 100 Thieves upper bracket heist. The Thieves opened strong with a shutout on Celestial Husk, and though Dark Zero battled back on Central Park, the Thieves would run away with a 3-1 win in the back half of this series. Though most of Stage 2 is winding down, we've still got a whole other week of America's action starting Thursday night as the playoffs get underway. 8 teams will be vying for a total of 4 Atlanta invites between them. Only time will tell who will survive and who will be sent home, but the only thing we can know for certain is there's plenty more where that came from. And EMEA isn't the only region in the midst of their playoffs. The Asia and Oceania regions just wrapped up their playoffs as well. And while we don't have time to talk about everything on this Rivals report, let's first touch on how the OCE playoffs went. Down Under action started strong with a face-off between Kanga Esports and Ground Zero, an old Stage 1 rivalry given new life here. Kanga took the first map of the series, but from then on, Ground Zero sought to tell the same story as their last encounter in Stage 1. They won 3 maps in a row to close out the series 3-1, sending Kanga down to the lower bracket. Chopper Mag would take on Vulcan Red in the other Day 1 match, but Chopper Mag gave absolutely zero quarter here. They'd take all 3 maps quite convincingly and clock out of an early night 3-0. Chopper Mag were pitted against their old org Ground Zero in the upper bracket finals on Day 2. GZ's new roster has been looking incredibly strong this stage, but Chopper Mag would lay on the hurt here, not only winning every map, but stopping GZ from scoring a single objective the entire series. We'd find out GZ's opponents as Kanga Esports and Vulcan Red battled in the lower bracket semifinals, with another absolutely shocking shutout here. Yet again, Vulcan Red not only defeated Kanga on every single map, but they also did it without Kanga scoring a single objective, setting the stage for a Vulcan Red versus Ground Zero lower finals showdown. And we'd get that Vulcan Red Ground Zero match on the final day of OCE playoffs, vying for a shot at OCE's one and only LAN invite. This was the first time these two teams tangled in Stage 2, and things started strong for Ground Zero with a win in the series opener on Krakoa. But Vulcan Red turned up the heat from there, stamping out GZ's DreamHack hopes with 3 solid back-to-back map wins, ending with a shutout on Celestial Husk to close out the series. And it all came down to this, the Grand Finals of Oceania Stage 2 with a matchup of veterans versus newcomers, the previous Stage 1 champs Chopper Mag up against the scrappy new blood on Vulcan Red. Krakoa was the opener here as well, and though Vulcan Red would show some signs of life and take it to 3 points, Chopper Mag snagged the opener for themselves. From there, it was a complete shutout by Chopper Mag. They gave up a single domination point, but left nothing on the table for Vulcan Red, not only winning the Grand Finals 4-0, and not only preventing their opponents from scoring a single point on 3 of those maps, but Chopper Mag were able to win Oceania Stage 2 without dropping a single map throughout the entire tournament. And that's where the Stage 2 playoff picture remains for now. Chopper Mag will be back at LAN once DreamHack rolls around later this month, but 4 invites are still on the table, all earmarked for the NA teams. We'll find out who's going to Atlanta and who's going home in the Americas region later this week as NA playoffs begin Thursday night. And finally this week, one region you don't hear much Tier 1 coverage about is South America. Unfortunately, our Latam friends have had a massive uphill battle involving latency, hamstringing their ability to compete in the MRC and Ignite. The Latam Rivals community has been quite outspoken about these issues on social media, and even some NA players have come out in support of creating a separate region for South American teams to have a fair shot. While we don't quite yet have word on whether or not the MRC will be expanding to include an exclusive South American region quite yet, NetEase have focused their recent efforts for community tournament outreach onto Latin America. Enter Protocolo Rivals, a tournament run by the Brazilian Rivals community and in association with Contado Nerd, a Brazilian Rivals content creator. This tournament also had official backing from NetEase in what we hope is a show of good faith from the company to expand efforts for fair competition into the LATAM region. With those forces assembled, this almost feels like a mini MRC for South America, a showcase of what the larger competitive Rivals collective is missing out on. 16 teams entered the fray in this tournament, the registration cap for this particular event, but 36 teams from across South America in total tried to enter. Those 16 squads duked it out in a single elimination bracket, all throwing their hat in the ring to try and walk away with a piece of the $1,800 Brazilian Real prize, which roughly converts to about $350 US in total. You may be familiar with some of these teams if you've participated in or watched the MRC, with some names like Team Nexus, Zocorp Esports, Las Cabras, INFC Sports, and more stepping up to the plate for this tournament. INFs were the first of the 16 teams to reach the grand finals for this event, a brutal path through the single elim bracket that eventually pitted them against some fierce competition. They crossed paths with Las Cabras, who they managed to defeat with a solid 2-0 performance in the quarterfinals. For their semifinal match, they went head-to-head against Zocorp Esports. And though Zocorp would manage to at least take a map off them, INFs would eventually punch their grand finals ticket with a 2-1 win. Their opponents would be Aura Farmers, a relatively unknown team with a few small community tournament finishes to their name. They'd take on a handful of unknown quantities in their campaign through the bracket. In the quarterfinals, they went to war with Real Griffins, making it out on the other side with a tight 2-1 finish. And in their semifinal match, they'd square off with Obsidian. But Aura Farmers lived up to their name here, cruising into the grand finals of the tournament with a 2-0 sweep. So INFC Sports and Aura Farmers were ready to do battle in the grand finals. First up for this best-of-5 series was Krakoa, which INFs would win in nearly uncontested fashion to get things rolling. We stuck with domination action for map 2, traveling to Hell's Heaven for this next bout. While definitely a closer map this time around, INFs would still manage to outpace Aura Farmers, going up 2-0 and hitting an early match and tournament point. The Farmers' potential last chance rested on Spider Islands, INFs on defense first here. INFs locked in a classic triple Vanguard triple support comp to lock the Aura Farmers down, eventually resulting in a full hold before the first checkpoint. INFs hopped in the driver's seat after halftime and finished off the final map of the tournament in a just over 2-minute offensive run. Protocolo Rivals was a beautiful nexus point for the South American competitive Rivals community to come together, with prominent figures watch partying and co-streaming the event. While it may not be the largest or most prevalent region in the game currently, this tournament was the perfect window into how competitive some of these LATAM teams can be. Rivals can and should be a game that offers everyone opportunities to compete. And if we're to remain an inclusive competitive community, we should be talking more about this, and we should do something to offer LATAM teams their own shot at a piece of the competitive circuit. Well, that's all for this week's Rivals Report. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest in Marvel Rivals Esports. And be sure to follow me on other platforms including Twitch, X, and TikTok. I've been Diatonic, you've been amazing, and I'll see you in-game.